Kabir was a well-known Indian mystic poet and saint. His verses are found in Sikhism's scripture Guru Granth Sahib, the Sit Guru Granth Sahib of Saint Kabir Dohas, and Kabir Sagar of Dharmadas. Today, Kabir is an important figure in Hinduism, Sikhism, and Islam, especially in Sufism. Born in the city of Varanasi in what is now Uttar Pradesh, he is known for being critical of organized religions. He questioned what he regarded to be the meaningless and unethical practices of all religions, primarily what he considered to be the wrong practices in Hinduism and Islam. During his lifetime, he was threatened by both Hindus and Muslims for his views. When he died, several Hindus and the Muslims he had inspired claimed him as theirs. Kabir suggested that truth is with the person who is on the path of righteousness, considered everything, living and non-living, as divine, and who is passively detached from the affairs of the world. To know the truth, suggested Kabir, drop the I, or the ego. Kabir's legacy survives and continues through the Kabirpant, path of Kabir, Suntmat sect that recognizes Kabir as its founder. Its members are known as Kabirpantas. The years of Kabir's birth and death are uncertain. Some historians favor 1398 to 1448 as the period Kabir lived, while others favor 1440 to 1518. Generally, Kabir is believed to have been born in 1398, so at 1455, 14 to 15 on the full moon day of Jyeshta month, according to the historical Hindu calendar Vikram Samvat, at the time of Brahma Muhurta. There is a considerable scholarly debate on the circumstances surrounding Kabir's birth. Many followers of Kabir believe that he came from Satloka by assuming the body of light, and incarnated on a lotus flower, and claim that the Rishi Ashtanand was the direct witness of this incident, who himself appeared on a lotus flower in the Lahartara pond. A few accounts mention that Kabir in the form of a child was found at Lahartara lake by a Muslim weaver called Niru and his wife Nima, who raised him as his parents. Kabir is believed to have become one of the many disciples of the Bhakti poet Saint Swami Ramananda in Varanasi, known for devotional Vaishnavism with a strong bent to Monastic philosophy, teaching that God was inside every person and everything. Early texts about his life place him with Vaishnava tradition of Hinduism as well as the Sufi tradition of Islam. According to Irfan Habib, the two manuscript versions of the Persian text Dabastan-e-Mazahib are the earliest known texts with biographical information about Kabir. The Dabastan-e-Mazahib states Kabir is a Bairagi, Vaishnava yogi, and states he is a disciple of Ramanand. The text refers to him repeatedly as Gang. Kabir's family is believed to have lived in the locality of Kabir Chaura in Varanasi, Banaras. Kabir Mata, a matar located in the back alleys of Kabir Chaura, celebrates his life and times. Accompanying the property is a house named Niutila which houses Niru and Nimar graves. Kabir's poems were in Sadukadi, borrowing from various dialects including Khadi Boli, Brij, Bhojpuri, and Udi. Kabir also wrote in pure Bhojpuri. For instance, his poems like Morhya Hera Il Baki Charemi is written in pure Bhojpuri. They cover various aspects of life and call for a loving devotion for God. Kabir composed his verses with simple words. Most of his work was concerned with devotion, mysticism and discipline. Kabir and his followers named his verbally composed poems of wisdom as Banis, utterances. These include songs and couplets, called variously Dohe or Shlok Aa. The latter term means witness, implying the poems to be evidence of the truth. Literary works with compositions attributed to Kabir include Kabir Bijak, Kabir Parichai, Sakhi Granth, Adi Granth, and Kabir Granthawali. However, except for Adi Granth, significantly different versions of these texts exist and it is unclear which one is more original. For example, Kabir Bijak exists in two major recensions. The most in-depth scholarly analysis of various versions and translations are credited to Charlotte Vaudeville, the 20th century French scholar on Kabir. There are 82 works attributed to Kabir as mentioned in Kabir and the Kabirpant by Westcott. Shyam Sundar Das himself brought to light two marked manuscripts which he published in 1928. One of these manuscripts carried the date 1504 and the other 1824. Kabir's poems were verbally composed in the 15th century and transmitted viva voce through the 17th century. Kabir Bijak was compiled and written down for the first time in the 17th century. Scholars state that this form of transmission, over geography and across generations, bred change, interpolation and corruption of the poems. Furthermore, whole songs were creatively fabricated and new couplets inserted by unknown authors and attributed to Kabir, not because of dishonesty but out of respect for him and the creative exuberance of anonymous oral tradition found in Indian literary works. Scholars have sought to establish poetry that truly came from Kabir and its historicity value. Kabir's poems can be found in a wide variety of publications and websites, but the discussion of authenticity is ongoing. It seems certain that minor changes will have occurred through the centuries, and it is also possible that poems written by others have been attributed to Kabir. Rabindranath Tagore's English translation and compilation, Songs of Kabir, was first published in 1915 and has been a classic, reprinted and circulated particularly in the West. One critic, V.C. Mishra, has gone so far as to suggest that only 6 of its 100 poems are authentic, and also raises the question of whether the translator projected theological perspectives of the early 20th century onto Kabir. The same essay adds that the presumed unauthentic poems nevertheless belong to the Bhakti movement in medieval India and may have been composed by admirers of Kabir who lived later. According to Linda Hess, some modern commentators have tried to present Kabir as a synthesizer of Hinduism and Islam, but the picture is a false one. While drawing on various traditions as he saw fit, Kabir emphatically declared his independence from both the major religions of his countrymen, vigorously attacked what he considered the follies of these religions, and tried to kindle the fire of a similar autonomy and courage in those who claimed to be his disciples. He adopted their terminology and concepts, but vigorously criticized them both. He questioned the need for any holy book, as stated in Kabir Grantawali as follows. Reading book after book the whole world died, and none ever became learned. But understanding the root matter is what made them gain the knowledge. Kabir Grantawali, translated by Charlotte Vaudeville. Many scholars interpret Kabir's philosophy to be questioning the need for religion, rather than attempting to propose either Hindu-Muslim unity or an independent synthesis of a new religious tradition. Kabir rejected the hypocrisy and misguided rituals evident in various religious practices of his day, including those in Islam and Hinduism. In Bijak, Kabir mocks the practice of praying to avatars. Kabir urged people to look within and consider all human beings as manifestation of God's living forms. Charlotte Vaudeville states that the philosophy of Kabir and other saints of the Bhakti movement is the seeking of the absolute. The notion of this absolute is nirgun, which, writes Vaudeville, denies any distinction between the soul, within a human being, and God, and urges man to recognize within himself his true divine nature. Vaudeville notes that this philosophy of Kabir and other Bhakti saints is self-contradictory, because if God is within, then that would be a call to abolish all external Bhakti. This inconsistency in Kabir's teaching may have been differentiating union with God from the concept of merging into God, or oneness in all beings. Lawrenson, in his review of Kabir's philosophy and poetry, writes, the extent to which Kabir borrowed elements from Islam is controversial. Many recent scholars have argued that he simply rejected Islam and took almost all his ideas and beliefs from the Hindu tradition. Contemporary Kabir Pansolius make roughly the same argument. Most of the vocabulary used in his songs and verses are borrowed directly from the Hindu tradition. Some scholars state that the sexual imagery in some of Kabir's poems reflect a mystic Sufi Islam influence, wherein Kabir inverts the traditional Sufi representation of a god-woman and devotee man longing for a union, and instead uses the imagery of Lord husband and devotee bride. Other scholars, in contrast, state that it is unclear if Sufi ideas influenced Bhakti saints like Kabir or it was vice versa, suggesting that they probably co-developed through mutual interaction. Kabir left Islam, states Ronald McGregor. Kabir, nevertheless, criticized practices such as killing and eating cows by Muslims, in a manner Hindus criticized those practices. Kabir's couplets suggest he was persecuted for his views, while he was alive. He stated, for example, "Saints, I see the world is mad. If I tell the truth they rush to beat me. If I lie they trust me." Kabir, Shabad, 4. Kabir's response to persecution and slander was to welcome it. He called the slanderer a friend, expressed gratefulness for the slander, for it brought him closer to his God. Winan Kali Wa'ad translates a poem attributed to Kabir in the warrior ascetic Tad Upandi tradition within Hinduism, as follows. Keep the slanderer near you, build him a hut in your courtyard. For, without soap or water, he will scrub your character clean. Kabir, Sakhi 23.4. The legends about Kabir describe him as the underdog who nevertheless is victorious in trials by a sultan, a Brahmin, a Qazi, a merchant, a god or a goddess. The ideological messages in the legends appealed to the poor and oppressed. According to David Lawrenson, legends about Kabir reflect a protest against social discrimination and economic exploitation. They present the perspective of the poor and powerless, not the rich and powerful. However, many scholars doubt that these legends of persecution are authentic, point to the lack of any corroborating evidence, consider it unlikely that a Muslim sultan would take orders from Hindu Brahmins or Kabir's own mother demanded that the sultan punish Kabir, and question the historicity of the legends on Kabir. Kabir literature legacy was promoted by two of his disciples, Kabir Dohas and Das. Songs of Kabir were collected by Kshatimohan Sen from mendicants across India. These were then translated to English by Rabindranath Tagore. Kabir's legacy continues to be carried forward by the Kabir Pant, Path of Kabir, a religious community that recognizes him as its founder and is one of the Sant sects. This community was founded centuries after Kabir died, in various parts of India, over the 17th and 18th centuries. Its members, known as Kabir Pantas, are estimated to be around 9.6 million. They are spread over north and central India, as well as dispersed with the Indian diaspora across the world, up from 8,43,171 in the 1901 census. There are two temples dedicated to Kabir located in Banaras. One of them is maintained by Hindus, while the other by Muslims. Both the temples practice similar forms of worship where his songs are sung daily. The followers of Kabir are vegetarians and abstain from alcohol. Guru Nanak and Bhai Mardana with Bhagat Kabir. This painting is found in the B40 Janmaskhi, written and painted in 1733. The painting was made by Alam Chand Raj. Kabir's verses were incorporated into Adi Granth, the scripture of Sikhism, with verses attributed to Kabir constituting the largest non-Sikh contribution. Some scholars state Kabir's ideas were one of the many influences on Guru Nanak, who went on to found Sikhism in the 15th century. Other Sikh scholars disagree, stating there are differences between the views and practices of Kabir and Nanak. Harpreet Singh, quoting Hugh MacLeod, states, in its earliest stage Sikhism was clearly a movement within the Hindu tradition. Nanak was raised a Hindu and eventually belonged to the Sant tradition of northern India, a movement associated with the noted poet and mystic Kabir. Surjit Singh Gandhi disagrees, and writes, Guru Nanak in his thought pattern as well as in action model was fundamentally different from Kabir and for that matter other radical bhaktars or saints. Saint has been erroneously used for such bhaktars by MacLeod. Hence to consider Kabir as an influence on Guru Nanak is wrong, both historically and theologically. MacLeod places Guru Nanak in the Sant tradition that included Kabir and states that their fundamental doctrines were reproduced by Guru Nanak. J. Grewal contests this view and states that MacLeod's approach is limiting in its scope because MacLeod takes into account only concepts, ignores practices altogether. He concentrates on similarities and ignores all differences.